Hello and welcome to this short video interview of CSIRO Staff Association members who recently attended the 2022 edition of Science Meets Parliament. My name is Anthony. I'm the Communications Officer for the Staff Association. I'm very excited to be joined by three of our wonderful Staff Association members who participated in the recent Science Meets Parliament event. But before we get to them, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet. I'm in Sydney on Gadigal country, but today we have people joining us from Perth, Adelaide and Canberra. So I want to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, always was, always will be. Thank you for joining us. I'll start by asking each of our participants to introduce themselves and just to give us a little sense of who they are and which part of the country they're joining us from and what type of work they do at CSIRO. I might start in the West if that's okay. Naomi, welcome.
Morning, everybody from Whadjuk country in Perth, WA. I am a research scientist, a mid-career research scientist at CSIRO Land and Water in Flora, WA. And I'm actually a microbiologist, but working predominantly in waste innovation, circular economy, and safe waste reuse.
Thank you.
That's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Naomi. Look, let's now go to Flora, who's in Adelaide. Hello, Flora.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, I'm based in Adelaide in Corner country. So I'm Flora Kerblat. I've been working for CSIRO for the last 7 years and managing international activities on Earth observation. So I'm currently under the Space and Astronomy Business Unit.
Thank you, Flora. Thank you. And finally, Rosangela in Canberra.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rosangela Devilla. I'm an experimental scientist in agriculture and food based in Canberra. And I use mass spectrometry techniques to help to elucidate novel products and through engineering, genetic engineering crops. And yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. So each year, the Staff Association sponsors members to attend Science Meets Parliament. Science Meets Parliament is an event that's organised by Science and Technology Australia and provides science workers and researchers an opportunity to interact with parliamentarians over a program that usually covers a couple of days. So in addition to providing an opportunity for science workers and researchers to meet with a parliamentarian, there's a lot of different content that's delivered as part of the Science Meets Parliament program. I just might ask each of you in turn to pick out a highlight from the program, something that really jumped out or you felt was particularly worthwhile. Maybe starting with you, Rosangela.
Yeah, well, the highlight for me was the advices on how to communicate the impact of your science and to policymakers in a manner that is simple and understandable, and you can get your news, your science news quickly and directly, and and how to interact with media, and that was my highlight.
Fantastic. What about you, Flora? What was a highlight for you over the course of the Science Meets Parliament program?
So I would have been the same thing in terms of like the practice your speech session was quite interesting to me. And I think the overall experience was, very useful, but the opportunity to meet with a member of parliament was actually the highlight for me, because it's it was like the tangible thing we could do, like a practice after a workshop. So it was really, really useful to put everything into practice and try to not be too stick to what you learn, but try to keep it simple and be natural in meeting with a member of parliament, which is not easy.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask you more about that in a moment. But before I do, Naomi, what about you? What was a highlight?
Yeah, I think the ways to communicate better with non-technical people who are the decision makers is really, really important skills that we should be learning pretty much from early in our scientific careers. But for me, it was more about the organisation of the government itself and how policy decisions are made. And I think often in my work, I feel a little bit like we're sort of running up against a lot of barriers and things, but knowing that those barriers are sort of echoed throughout the organisation of policy and things like that. It's not that people are unwilling to take on your science to make policy decisions. It's just that sometimes there's an order to it and a process behind it. I thought was really interesting, and also how open policy advisors are to communicating directly with technical specialists as well. I thought was really eye-opening and an excellent piece of advice. So find the person that you need to speak to, and they'll be all ears.
Yeah, that's such good advice, and yeah, really good to see that the event, I think, in bringing together some of this, not just the policymakers and the researchers, but also trying to foster direct links with advisors is really important. It's a big shift that's taken place over the last decade, I think. That's great. Okay, well, let's talk about those meetings with parliamentarians. Now, Flora, you and Naomi were due to meet with Julie Owens, who is the member for Parramatta in New South Wales. Unfortunately, Naomi, you were unable to attend due to caring commitments, but Flora, you did attend. So talk to us about that meeting with Julie Owens and yeah, what you enjoyed about it, and perhaps as you were describing earlier, how you had the opportunity to put some of those skills that you'd learned into practice.
Yeah. So thank you. And I guess I had this opportunity to meet with her maybe because of Naomi's absence, unfortunately, because I was supposed to meet with another one the day before, but it was cancelled. So it was actually, yeah, quite interesting to meet with her because she was easy to talk to. She seemed to be very interested in knowing what we were doing and in the event itself, excited about the event and how to, yeah, really connect with scientific people, with researchers. And what was interesting to me was because it was a group meeting as well, being with two other attendees. And we were really I found three different people, like three different women actually, but from different ages, different kind of work and organizations. So the way we communicate was simply interesting to see, to watch. Yeah, depending on your background, but also what do you want to achieve if you're a company owner, or if you work in a research thing, in a research organization, it's a bit different. We had an hour-long interview with her, and
wow.
I think it was yeah, really interesting discussion. I think also because she showed interest in what we tried to show her, like in environmental issues, and she tried to connect to her real life as well, and what she came across in her political life. I said in her political life because she's due to retire. So it's also, I think, it's good to talk to someone really experienced, and she did mention several times that she would talk to some other colleagues on certain topics. So I think feeling that the person is genuinely interested to hear what you're saying, but also you could also feel that she wanted to know and go straight to the point. I think that's what we learned, trying to provide a clear message. And I think this is where you need to get ready and prepared to do this kind of meetings. And realizing that, yeah, you in your everyday life at work, you work with your colleagues who are dealing with the same language, the same issues all the time, the acronyms, of course. But when you need to talk to someone else, especially who is all like really busy, and you need to get straight to the point, communicating what's the most important thing, and the audience, like keeping in mind who are you talking to and what's their interest, is really helping your thinking and how you visualize your project as well. In my situation, I for instance work on one or two projects that I think are strategic at the moment for Australia and are really meaningful, because they are in the end they would aim to facilitate and make things easier for Australians in a disasters situation, and it was quite timely with the flood situation. So being able to relate to that and how it actually impacts the population, it just helps to also make your work feel your contribution to this more useful as well. So it's a win-win situation where you share your work, but also have the feeling that yes, what you're doing is actually useful for society, for Australia.
Yeah, fantastic. I think those points are really well made, especially regarding the benefits of being able to clearly communicate and to be able to then demonstrate the relevance when you're speaking to politicians who often have a very sort of deep and abiding interest in public policy. I mean, a lot of politicians obviously get a bad rap a lot of the times, but I mean, many of them are in there for very good reasons. And certainly someone like Julie, I think, who's nearing the end of her career, is probably in a bit more of a reflective mood. But yeah, an hour, that's great. That sounds like a really...
and I just wanted to point that, like, yeah, I think it's a good, maybe in the next phase we could talk about it, but the fact that this experience for me is also a good opportunity for women and people in research who don't have necessarily a visible role in the research field. It's a good way to actually be a bit more out and to show what you can do and really connect with other people. It's a great opportunity for this as well.
Fantastic. Okay, Rosangela, you met with Julian Hill. Now, Julian is a Victorian Member of Parliament. He represents the seat of Bruce, which I think is down sort of near the Dandenongs. But would you like to talk to us about your meeting with Julian, about your impressions and about how the meeting went?
Yeah, it was a very interesting meeting. We were four of us with different backgrounds, science backgrounds and the science areas, different science areas. But we had a common talk, and it was very productive, but everybody engaged in the conversation, and Julian was a very engaging politician and very nice to talk to. And the main topic was investments in science, because we have suffering so many cuts, and all the others agree the same position that science needs more investment, not only on applied science, but we need to keep the basic science, the fundamental science funding up to. And this we discussed this with Julian, and also about the gender gap. We discussed about that, and the role of how can I say that the women and in higher positions, this gender gap is still there, and we need to address this more in depth. I think mainly was that. Mainly was that. It was a very good conversation with Julian.
Yeah, he's a real personality, isn't he, Julian? Yeah, well, look, that's great. And in terms of both of those reports, it sounds like there was a real genuine and authentic connection, and that's really what this program is set up to try to achieve. Let's wrap it up. I want to finish by asking each of you if there was a key lesson or an insight that you gained from the Science Meets Parliament experience. Naomi, can I start with you?
Sure. I think the key insight for me was around still the structure and accessibility of, I guess, the policy advisors and their openness to understanding your science. Like they described it as trying to find a needle in a haystack, though. But I think they really wanted to get across that unless you try, you're never going to get the ear of the people that make the decisions. So, starting very broad and contacting as many people as you can, you'll finally whittle your way down to the people that actually matter in terms of, I guess, policy change and policy decisions. I thought that was probably the key takeaway for me. And along with some of the key communication skills still, though I didn't get a chance to meet with a parliamentarian, unfortunately this time, I constantly am meeting with people at various levels of government. So those little tips and tricks and advices from literally all levels of government are definitely going to be well used in my projects and my career moving forward.
That's great. Okay. What about you, Flora? Could you tell me a key lesson or a key insight that you gained from the Science Meets Parliament experience?
Yes, so we've discussed about the importance of the communication skills and ability to keep it simple and accessible. I think this is one of the key objectives of this event, but also I think people stress that several times, but the fact that we were able to meet other people from the science community in Australia, not necessarily in your field, because usually when you meet other researchers is through workshops and it's always in your field. I think it makes you realize how broad is the science field, and I guess how difficult it must be for politicians as well to pick up what's important. Yeah, the fact that there is this strong this event, I think it's critical in the sense that it brings together the science community before also talking to other politicians. One thing I wanted to mention as well is I couldn't attend all the sessions, unfortunately, and I think the fact that it was not face-to-face didn't help, in the sense that we need to recognize that meeting, like having these things organized face-to-face, are so important in the sense that we could have also networked more. So it's, I'm just saying, like, I know that I should have been able to do much, but it's more, it's great to have everything online because it gives more flexibility, but it's also important to keep in mind that some face-to-face meetings need still to happen to be more efficient.
No, it's a good point and it's well made. And typically this event has operated as a face-to-face experience.
Yeah,
it's been held over 2 days in Canberra, and the first day is when you would receive most of that program content, and then on the second day you spent your time up at Parliament House, and you would have your meeting with your politician, and you would go to question time and to the National Press Club for the address and all that type of thing. So yeah, very different, and you're quite right, a lot more opportunities to make connections and to network and that type of thing. And look, we hope that there's a return to that type of event in the future, and that there might be opportunities for you guys to experience a different type of Science Meets Parliament in the future. Let me flip to you now, Rosangela. Just finally, any key lesson or highlight, key lesson or insight that you took out of the Science Meet Parliament event?
Yeah, just going back, I agree totally with Flora that we have disadvantages and advantages in having the online conference, but the lack of person-to-person contact and more communication, because sometimes you miss this one-to-one communication, and in person will be much better, I think. But I think the biggest insight to me is a meeting with the with the MP, and discussing science and communicating science in the way that you will learn in the workshops, in a simple form and more impact and more direct, and show how our science can make a change in the community or in the country. So that's the take for me.
Fantastic.
Just as another quick perspective, without having the online accessibility, I probably wouldn't have been able to attend at all. So I guess there's always two sides of the coin. Yeah. There is a little bit of a benefit for face-to-face contact, but I think for accessibility and being able to access the stuff that comes along with the training and the presentations and things like that was invaluable in my case. There's just no way that I would have been able to attend otherwise.
Yeah,
I can't disagree, because it would have been difficult for me to travel with family.
The joys
as well.
of modern times.
It would be bad for me because I'm in Canberra, but for you.
But I guess a hybrid type of event can be like even more like keeping the online stuff is really useful, because also you can go back to it, and this is also to have it at your own pace. But agree with you, Naomi. It's also it brings other people that couldn't attend, so it's also need to
double-edged sword.
Yes.
I think we'll find that in the future we will see more of that hybrid type use of it, both in face and online video content, to improve accessibility, especially for our friends out west. So look, I just want to thank you all.
We couldn't get there.
I know. I want to thank you all for not just attending and doing us so proud, but also by providing us with your reflections today. Really appreciate it. I know that you're all very busy, and that's making the time to do this is something that we really appreciate. Each year, the Staff Association does sponsor a number of members to attend Science Meets Parliament. If you're a Staff Association member and you're interested in attending the event, send us a short expression of interest. It doesn't need to be too long or too detailed. Just let us know who you are, what you do, why you'd like to attend. You can email that through to us at csstaff, so csstaff@cpsu.org.au, or you can find more contact information for us on our website, which is www.csirosstaff.org.au. Thanks again for joining us today, and really appreciate your reflections on a successful Science Meets Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.